Hello, and welcome to another video on astrological ascendants. Today we're going to be doing the Aquarius Ascendant, and because yesterday we did the Capricorn Ascendant, and if you're new here, what is an ascendant? An ascendant is basically the degree of the zodiac belt, the ecliptic, that was rising in the east, due east of wherever you were being born. So the belt goes roughly east to west, and whatever's rising on the eastern horizon, being where the sun is at the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, 0 degrees Aries, when it comes up, that is your ascendant on the day you were born. An Aquarius ascendant is going to have, like all other ascendants, certain houses. Your ascendant is your first house, and the house system determines the areas of your life and how they manifest in the Western Hermetic and Vedic astrological systems. So, the Aquarius ascendant, like the Capricorn ascendant, is ruled by Saturn, but it has extra flavors because it has two co-rulers. Some people don't use the co-rulers. I find them to be very helpful and revealing. So, Saturn is delay and delayed gratification and anxiety, and it defines the boundaries of the physical reality, because typically when people are experiencing delays, they are experiencing delays because of boundaries and material physical existence. Because of this, Saturn gets a bad rap because it brings delays, but you have to understand that without delays there would be no improvement, because there would be no need to improve. Saturn also rules needs and also negation, the word no. So, Capricorn is ruled solely by Saturn. Aquarius, however, has these two co-rulers, which are Uranus and the north node of the moon, respectively. And if Saturn is delays, Uranus is an intelligent way around the delay. So something that helps you to get more out of your time. Get like a tool. This is why Uranus represents tool use, and is also why the sign of Aquarius represents machines, tool use, and technology, and also like the end product of philosophy, which is to essentially make your life easier. So it's all about practical, useful information. Now, the north node of the moon is a sort of maniacal energy that wants to use technology in the most immoral way. And by what I mean by immoral is it wants what it wants then, and it doesn't necessarily care who it has to step on to get the goal. So when you put all these three things together, you get a sign that is experiences delays but seeks intelligent and fast and sometimes even immoral ways around the problem and the obstacle it faces. So it's a very ingenious sign. This is why it's an air sign. It deals with intelligence, and it deals with applied intelligence. So the second house of the Aquarius ascendant is Pisces, and second house correlates to the sign of Taurus always, and it represents your material desires and the things you like and appreciate, the kind of music you listen to. And as Pisces represents spirituality and detachment, these people tend to not be super into the material side of things. They tend to be more esoteric, and they tend to not have a lot of possessions, and sort of like Cain traveling the world with his belongings on his back in the Bible, or somebody who goes from town to town and just sort of is interested in learning everything on the way there, but ultimately they feel like in a large part the more possessions they have, the more useless possessions they have, the more tied down they are. So the third house of these people is Aries. Third house relates to communication and the sign of Gemini. Aries, again, relates to ambitions, your drives. It's also aggressive and competition. So these people have, they're quick to speak up, and they're also quick to speak up if they see some sort of injustice or anything that's wrong. And they're a little bit headstrong in that when they're communicating, they can, because they know a lot, they can have the opinion often that they're right and everybody else is wrong and they need to shut the hell up. These people's fourth house is Taurus, and fourth house represents your home and the things that make you feel emotionally secure. It relates to the sign of Cancer. And the sign of Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it represents the second house. So these people, their homes tend to be a place of comfort for them and a place of meditation and relaxation. And they also tend to keep their places pretty clean. The fifth house of the Aquarius Ascendant is Gemini, and these people, they have a lot of they communicate about creative projects and hobbies and stuff that they do with their hands and their mind, because Gemini rules both the brain and the hands. So think about, you see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand, the Will Smith quote. These people tend to communicate a lot about things of that nature. It's like, all right, I'm going to build this, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to do this, that kind of thing. They're always sort of on the go with their projects. The sixth house of the Aquarius Ascendant is Cancer, and this can be a negative placement for them because sixth house deals with enemies and logic and information, and Cancer deals with emotional security. But if you put Cancer in the sign of your enemies and your arguments, then what can happen is these people can explode when provoked. And because Cancer is a very reactive energy, and it's very primal and self-defensive, so if these people feel like they're being threatened, they get very emotionally unstable, kind of like the Joker, and they explode. So that's obviously not good in the long run. So the seventh house of these people is Leo, so their relationships tend to be with people who are also very creative, but more on the artistic side, and people who are often very, very chill, but also very driven. So these people can be attracted to people who are relaxed but driven at the same time, kind of like almost like, you know how Leo represents a lion, and the lion is just sort of lounging around until it decides to move, and then when it moves, it crushes whatever's in its path. These people can be attracted to that because they're very manic and busy. And if a person is more of like a relaxed homebody, like just lounging, but they're also very effective, they're respectable, these people do like that. These people's eighth house is Virgo. Eighth house deals with research and deep research and the taboo information and occult. And the eighth house being Virgo is actually a very good placement for these people because Virgo is a sign of intelligence and judging ideas, whether the ideas are good or bad or useful or not useful. And if you have your eighth house in Virgo, these people take the taboo and secret knowledge and just anything they come across, regardless of what it is, whether other people believe it or not, and they can judge it sort of objectively because the Virgo energy is good at separating wheat from the chaff, which is why Virgo is represented by wheat. These people's ninth house, which represents higher learning, is Libra, and so how this manifests is Libra is a sign of diplomacy and politeness, and the ninth house is a sign of teachers. So whenever these people have a teacher that they actually respect, which isn't often because they are very creative and very intelligent, so it's going to be hard for them to respect their teachers, but when they do know that somebody knows more about a subject than them, they tend to be very polite and attentive to them. So that's it can be good and it can be bad because they don't respect people often, but when they do respect them, they are very polite and calm down a lot in their communication. The 10th house of the Aquarius Ascendant is also very well placed. It's Scorpio. So the 10th house being Scorpio means that these people spend a lot of time and effort and anxiety. They have a lot of anxiety regarding like deep knowledge and sort of trying to learn everything they can. And because they have this anxiety, they tend to understand a lot of new information over the course of their life, which is it can be very intense because in the early time of their life, especially in the first 30 years, they might feel like they don't know anything or life is very scary and confusing. But after 30, this knowledge sort of compounds. The Scorpio research, it compounds, and it actually becomes very, very useful later in their life. So the 11th house of these people is Sagittarius. So this just means that the 11th house is gains and tool use and practical tool use. It represents the sign of Aquarius. The sign of Sagittarius is your teachers and people that share new information with you. It's also your capacity to see and observe things. So these people gain a lot of information and they're very perceptive, and they kind of see everything in HD because of this placement. Whereas, most people might look at this chair behind me and be like, that chair is white and yellow. But the Aquarius person will kind of look at it and see virtually every color that's woven into the fabric. So in a way, it helps them manipulate reality better, but in a way it can be very disheartening because other people just aren't seeing what they see. So it's like if you were to look at a TV that's like 8-bit or like very, very like grainy, not 8-bit, but like very pixelated, like 240p, and then another TV is like 4K Blu-ray. It's like you could be looking at the same show, but the show would be much less in detail and you couldn't see barely anything on the 240p. So 240p, you could think of that as like Taurus, and then Aquarius would be like the like the very, very high definition view of reality. Like I would say Aquarius, Pisces, and Scorpio are the signs that view reality the most in HD. And my comment about Taurus, like, that's not about any one person. It's just about the sign of Taurus in particular. So unless somebody's entire chart is Taurus, like their ascendant and everything else is Taurus, then, and nobody's alive like that right now. So it's kind of irrelevant. But the sign of Taurus is typically not super perceptive because it's based in material reality. So it doesn't need to be perceptive. Anyway, these people's 12th house. 12th house represents hidden knowledge, and similar to Scorpio, but Scorpio deals with knowledge both inside and outside of your body, so it's psychology mixed with outside reality and manipulation of that information, whereas Pisces represents observing nature itself and drawing conclusions, but it's not necessarily as much about the introspection, because Pisces is a counterpart to Virgo. Virgo is a sign of material manipulation. So Pisces is imagination and observation of nature. Virgo is material and material transformation and science and material manipulation and judgment of ideas, whereas Scorpio is the counter sign to Taurus, and Taurus is about material reality, but Scorpio is about the means of acquiring material reality and the tact and the strategy and the psychology involved in getting what you want out of the world. So they're two different energies. But anyway, that's the 12th house. It correlates to Pisces. These people's 12th house is Capricorn, so they tend to have a very stable view of nature, and when they look at the world, they tend to look at it as like, what can I do with it? And also they have delays in their ability to objectively observe things, but these delays create anxiety, and anxiety creates growth because that is the process of Saturn. And ultimately, they will gain a coherent sort of metaphysical understanding of what they're looking at when they look out at the world. But when you see things in very much HD, it can be hard to build a coherent mental map and have a coherent philosophy. So these people have trouble with spirituality just because they see so much, and whereas somebody who's less deep might just look at Christianity and just be like, oh yeah, that's 100% right. Like, how could it not be? These people see all the flaws in the information because they're looking at it in HD, and as such, this creates an existential angst, and it draws them to learn more about the world. So that's actually a very good part of this, even though it can be difficult. So yeah, that's my analysis of Aquarius Ascendant, and the last Ascendant I'm going to do either tonight or tomorrow is the Pisces Ascendant. And after that, I will probably be doing the lunar mansions, the nakshatras, so stay tuned for that. It's out of order, but I think it's probably the most useful thing to do next. So anyway, that is my video on Aquarius Ascendant. Tune in next time for Pisces Ascendant.